When it comes to your life purpose, I think we always need to think about it's always the greater good, right? Like, how are we impacting the world that we're in? How are we connecting with humanity? How are we giving back? When we look back, and every person who's very old, who's giving us younger generations life advice, that's always the top of their list.
Welcome to Climbing the Corporate Ladder Without Breaking a Heel. I'm your host, Dr. Cynthia. With over 30 years in the corporate world, as a single mom, cancer survivor, and often the only woman in the C-suite, I understand the balancing act high-achieving women face. Now an executive coach and international speaker, my mission is to embolden every woman in the C-suite or on the rise to claim her agency and challenge the norms holding her back. Tailored for ambitious professional women, this show features candid conversations with powerful business leaders sharing their real stories of success and failure. If you're ready to look up and step up, you're in the right place. Join us and invest in your future today. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Climbing the Corporate Ladder Without Breaking a Heel. I am your host, Dr. Cynthia. Here's a question I want you to hold on to as we go through today's episode. If your job title disappeared tomorrow, not your paycheck, just the title, the role, the identity that comes with it, who would you be? What would still matter? My guest today spent 2 decades at the very top of global communications and marketing, the kind of career that looks from the outside like the definition of making it. And all along the way, her body started sending signals, messages that she wasn't fully listening to until she had no choice. She built her second act around a distinction I think every woman listening needs to hear: the difference between your work purpose and your life purpose, and what happens when the two quietly stop matching. Elizabeth Rosenberg spent 2 decades in global communications and marketing, most recently as a director of communications at one of the world's largest advertising agencies, before walking away from all of that in 2020 to found the Good Advice Company, where she now works as part communication strategist, part executive coach, and part brand builder for C-suite executives. Known for what she calls radical candor and real talk feedback. I love that. Her story on corporate burnout went viral on Business Insider. We're going to dig in. And she spent the years since figuring out and now helping others figure out the difference between a career that looks like purpose and a life that actually feels like one. Elizabeth, so excited to have you on the show. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. What a beautiful, you're talking about me, but thank you for summing that up so beautifully.
Yeah. We've gotten to know each other a little bit, kind
Yeah.
of off camera, off mic, and your story somewhat starts, but kind of a false start all the way back in 2016. My understanding is that you ended up with a migraine that was so debilitating that you had lost motor function and
Yes.
landed you in the ER. And yet that wasn't the point of the pivot. From a purpose perspective, take
No.
us back to what was going in hindsight, right?
Yeah.
What was going on at that point in your life?
I think that burnout is something that we are all going to experience. So I think that we talk about, or at least when I hear people talking about burnout, everyone is out there talking about how do we prevent it? What do we do? But everyone's burnout is going to look differently. So how you're going to burn out and how I'm going to burn out are going to be very different. Now, did I ever think that I would lose all my motor skills with a migraine? No. And I've had migraines since I was 4. This is a whole new adventure of my
Oh,
body just completely turning off. And like every strong female, I drove myself to the hospital that day, which
right.
I look back and was like, God, that was a terrible idea.
Right.
I'm grateful that I didn't like hurt anyone else. Um, but yeah, that wasn't the catalyst for change, because in that moment, I kept thinking there must be something else wrong. Like
Mm,
I have to have a brain tumor. Maybe I had a stroke. Like then you go down this path of like medically what is wrong with me,
right.
right? It's like you're trying to find answers. Nobody ever wants to hear that the answer is you. Like
Yes.
you're the problem here. Like We're Taylor
Right.
Swifting this. It's me. The problem is me.
Yes.
And that's a tough pill to swallow because that one, what happens is that then leads to, well, then what does recovery look like for me? And
Right.
everyone's recovery is also different.
Yeah.
So when I, especially when I'm coaching people on burnout or even just when I'm talking about it in general, I don't like to talk about it as something that is an easy fix because it's not. For some people, it can be a
Mhm.
weekend off. For some people, you need a full year to recover and you need either therapy or you need physical therapy or you need, there's something emotional, physical, mental, spiritual that all needs to kind of align to get you
Mhm.
past that. And I also think it's something that we are always keeping at bay. Because even though I know what it looks like now, I will still catch myself of being like, "Oh, I'm getting close to that again." Or I will have somebody
Right.
else say to me, "You look like you're gonna burn out again,"
Yes.
which
Yeah.
is wild.
It's
Yeah.
it's interesting you sort of alluded to something I think is really also very interesting is, we often think of burnout specifically related to jobs,
Yeah.
that we're overworked, right? We're trying to do too many things. And so that's what we associate with burnout. As you know, through my thought leadership around drift, and you just alluded to this,
Mhm.
you can, what I would consider drift, which is the sort of precursor to the burnout feeling, is it can be because your relationships are out of sync and out of alignment. It could be
Yeah.
because you aren't clear on your, other purpose, that you're not ultimately using your gifts and talents. um, 18 years ago, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And just a really quick tether to that, up until literally the last year,
Mhm.
the story was, oh my gosh, I was in the best health of my life, right? I was in the best fitness, healthy eater, all the things like physically. To your point,
Yeah.
you go mentally or you go medically first, right?
Yeah.
This conundrum of how in the world did at 40 years old I develop breast cancer. In the last year, I'm like, huh, when I think back to where I was at that stage of raising kids, my marriage was really struggling.
Mhm.
I was working a very demanding job. Stress was, palpable. I'm like, and then you look at the research about stress and cancer. I'm like, maybe there was a less medical
Uh,
reason, right? That
yes.
happened. But here I am, Elizabeth, 18 years later, I'm having this epiphany as I'm starting this new
Yeah.
work. So I say that to the person listening. Let's get out in front of that. So what's
And I also
kind of,
loved my job. I just wanna stress that too.
yeah,
Like, I was traveling the world. I mean, I really had it good. I was just working way too hard, and I think that the stress of my work itself, like, if
yes,
something happened, it could potentially affect international money markets. Like, I
right,
was in my 30s, like, that's terrifying,
right.
you know?
Big
Big
risk.
stuff. Yeah.
Big stuff,
So
high stakes.
yeah.
So, something happened between 2016 and 2020. So, in March of 2020, before the world shut down,
Yeah.
you walked away, left this big job, this sort of pinnacle of your career to that point,
Yeah.
behind. What
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 was that?
version of you showed up in 2020
Yeah.
differently?
You know, it's gonna sound very cliche, but I turned 40,
Mm,
and, I was I was really wondering and just thinking about my career and where I wanted it to go next. I had been an entrepreneur earlier in my career. I'd had my own consultancy for 8 years and then went into advertising. And I was like, "Is this I've been doing this for a very long time. Is this actually what I
mm,
wanna do? Maybe not." You know?
right.
And I think that I worked with an amazing executive coach who really helped me see kind of what I was loving to do, what I was good at doing, what I could make money doing, all the things that I think very good executive coaches can help you figure out.
Mhm.
And from there I was like, okay, I got this. I was going to quit. I was going to consult. I was also going to travel and I was going to do all these things. And then that did not happen. Clearly the universe was like, no, no, you're going to be at home
Yeah,
with
you're gonna stay at home
yes,
with everybody
the
else at
whole
home.
world is going to be at home.
Right.
But I also look at that time as such a needed reset, as a time
Mm,
that really, gave me the opportunity to reevaluate not only my work, but my relationship with work, my outside relationships. my health.
Mhm.
Um, so I know the pandemic was so hard for collectively all of us, but there was a lot of good that came out of it for me.
Yeah, I hear more often that that's the case. I think as people look back and say, "What did we pull from that? What did we learn from that?" Yes, obviously many devastating things, but several things I think that pivoted us in a better direction.
Yeah.
I wanna go back to something you said earlier because I think it's super important. I was actually coaching a woman yesterday, has a opportunity to get promoted. She's interviewing for a next level job, but her conundrum, and I give her so much props for this. She said, "I'm not sure I want it." She's
Yeah.
like, "I'm 54 years old. I don't know that like I feel like I should want it, but I don't know that I do because I've been here for 9 years. I
Mhm.
certainly can do the job. It feels like that's the natural next step, but is this what I really want at this place in my life?" And you mentioned something I think is important for the person listening. Burnout isn't just because you hate your job, right? So
No.
there's somebody listening going, "I'm burnt out. I have a toxic boss or I work for
Or
an"
there's just a lot going on in the world around you, like
Right.
we are in a very chaotic time in the
Yes.
timeline. So
Correct.
there can just be the world around you that can burn you out too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to sort of reconcile that in your own
Mhm.
mind that you can have feelings that and maybe you don't have a name for them. Maybe burnout isn't the word you would use, right?
Yeah.
Words can be tricky. Um, it's sometimes don't you think it's just that feeling of off? It just something feels off or misaligned. Like, what would you
Yes.
tell the person that's going, "I don't know if I'd call it burnout, but I'm just feeling
Not good.
not
Like, I
good."
don't like that. It just
I
doesn't
know.
feel good.
It
I
just
mean,
something
it's like
doesn't feel good.
yeah, I don't wanna get, like, too coachy because I do think aligned is probably the right word, but I just think of, like, no, that does that it's does that bring me joy? Does that feel
Right.
good or does that not feel good? Not feel
Yeah.
good? Okay, great. And I think we try to talk ourselves into things that don't feel good into feeling good because we know that society is pointing us in that direction, and I just wish we could find more of a balance of I know that I need to pay my mortgage, I know that I need groceries, I know that I need a job in order to function here and
Right.
be a member of society, but I also know that the thing I'm doing is something that I really, really hate. So how
Mhm.
do I just kind of like how do I pivot just a little bit to figure out what it is that I love while I'm still kind of doing the thing that is paying for the stuff that's keeping me going, you know?
Absolutely.
I'm
Yeah,
not
I
that
I
I'm not that person that's like in 2021, I would have been like, quit your job, do whatever you want. Like, this is, like, let's go.
yeah.
Now I'm like, that is just not wise. Let's not do that. Let's strategize how we get from point A to point B.
It's really important because you know that there's a woman listening that's saying, "I can barely afford put gas in my
Hmm.
car right now," right?
Yeah.
Groceries are crazy right now. I'm trying to just get by. Don't love my job, but I need the benefits. I
Yeah.
need the money.
It's real.
And I think the through line that both of us spend a lot of time coaching around and talking about is do your day job with excellence, but start working on your next. Figure out what is that thing that gives you joy and do a
Yes.
little bit of it, right? Just find that outlet and maybe you monetize that down the road.
Hmm.
Because sometimes the reality is I'm just in collecting a paycheck right now, but
Yeah.
don't make that your complacency drift where you never look up, you never set your
Hmm.
sights on something else.
And if you don't know what that thing is that brings you joy, I've heard that from a lot of people. Like, I just don't
Mhm.
anymore. I just don't know what it is that makes me happy. My good advice for that and my recommendation is to just start saying yes. Like,
Mm,
when people say, like, "Do you wanna do this?" "Yes." "Okay, great.
give
Sounds
it a
like a plan.
try.
Give it a try." You don't know until you're like it's easier to weed out the things you hate than it is to pick the things that you love.
So true.
So, you have to do the things to figure those things out, you know?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
true. I know every introvert listening is going, "Oh, but really? Do I have to?"
Well, and like, start small. One thing a
Yeah,
month, It doesn't have to be that all of a sudden you're going out every day because that also gets expensive, And
sure,
and
sure.
and get and not just monetarily, but with your energy as well.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So start small.
absolutely.
Say yes once. See what happens.
I like that advice a lot. I want to talk about, I love that you distinguish the difference between work purpose and life purpose. And this sort of caused me pause because I don't know that I've dissected it even for myself that way, right? I just thought sort of purpose is purpose. Talk
Yeah.
more about that and how that shows up and your thoughts on that.
I think that we have all started to define our work purpose as if that's our life purpose.
Mhm.
And work is just a means to an end for a lot of people, right? And hopefully there's some point in your life where you're really gonna love your job. Like I really love PR. It's
Yeah.
storytelling, it's connecting with people. I mean, I feel like I've been doing it since I was in elementary school.
Mhm.
It's like my lot in life. When it comes to your life purpose, I think we always need to think about it's always the greater good, right? Like, how are we impacting the world that we're in? How are we connecting with humanity? How are we giving back? When we look back, and every person who's very who's very old, who's giving us younger generations life advice, that's always the top of their list.
Mm.
Is what am I leaving behind? How was I able to give back? What does that legacy look like? And it doesn't have to be that we're all standing on stage and we're all doing all the things that everyone says, like, that's what influence looks like.
Right.
There is such a small ripple effect of you mentoring one person or, you starting a pay it forward at the Starbucks drive-through or, you know what I mean? Just something little that like makes not you feel good, but makes other people feel good around you. Like
Mhm.
I've always said that like I would be very content if my obituary just said that I was a kind person.
Mm.
Like, that
Yeah.
means that, like, other people felt that kindness from me.
Right. Right.
Um, and it was very disturbing, I think, when I think that's part of the reason that one of the things I learned during the pandemic was that when I was introduced on Zooms, everyone would be like, "Oh, this is Elizabeth, and this is her resume. This is where she has worked," and it gives you immediate clout, right? It gives you immediate, um there's a reason for you to be in the room.
Right. Right.
But no one ever says, like, "This is Elizabeth," "Oh, she's coming from Los Angeles," she like, just something fun about me, right? Like,
Yes.
"She's a twin, she's a medium, she loves to read." I mean, there's no, like and it's such an American thing to be like, "Oh, what's your name and what do you do?" And that's how we
Mhm.
introduce ourselves. So I've really started asking other people questions instead of, "Hi, what do you do?" Like, "Oh, what was one thing that you really loved, like, to learn last week?" Or,
Oh,
"What's one thing that
yeah.
you like what's the one best piece of advice you have to give anybody?" And
Right.
it totally changes the conversation 100%. So, I've tried to be very mindful of that. And I also and I've done this for years, I will compliment a stranger every day.
I
It will be in
big
person,
fan of that.
it will
Right.
be in line at the grocery store, it will be
Right.
on LinkedIn, whatever. I feel like that is it makes me feel good, it makes them feel good. Keep
Yeah,
doing it.
absolutely.
Yeah.
There's some new happiness research out that actually shows, from a data and evidence
Yeah.
perspective of how much that brings you joy, giving
Mhm.
someone else a compliment, how much that advances your own joy,
Mhm.
engagement, happiness factor.
Yeah.
Um,
It's awesome. I mean,
I
it's a free, easy thing to do.
it's
Let's do more of
so
it.
easy.
Yes.
Absolutely. I love your on your obituary if it just said you were kind. I've often thought mine, I think a lot about I want every person I interact with to feel seen.
I love that. Yeah.
If you're going through the security at the airport, if you're, going through the drive whatever it is, drive through that the person that you're interacting with for that 30 seconds or that whatever the amount of time, that they feel significant, that they actually
Valued.
feel seen,
Yes.
valued, significant. That to me um, would be more important than really anything, all the credentials, anything
I love
else.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know you were a twin. That's
Yeah.
fascinating. Yeah. And the other thing you said when you were talking about work purpose versus life purpose, and I love that distinction. I'm gonna really sit in that with my own clients as well, because I think sometimes they get here's where I was going. I think Gen Z and the newer generations in particular, they're really challenging that, right? They're really
Yeah.
challenging sort of my demographic of I lived to work and they work to live.
I guest
Um,
lecture at a college, and yes, it
it's
is I have to give them every generation. make some kind of significant change
That's
in
right.
in the workforce. Um, I really hope that that's theirs, that we find
I
a better balance because we
do
desperately
too.
need it. Yeah.
Yeah, I do too. I love it. I mean, I think it challenges all of us to think differently about
Mhm.
how we're showing up in the world, where we're showing up in the world. There is a part that I would want every human being to be somewhat altruistic
Mhm.
to give back to the greater good, but that doesn't necessarily have to be through
No,
your work purpose. And
not at all.
I think that's
Yeah.
an important distinction. You talked earlier about um, burnout isn't one size fits all, and so the fix, the healing
Yeah.
process, not only the time it may take to recover, if you will, but also how you go about that. Talk a little bit about as your own journey as well as others you've coached different ways in which people have sort of addressed
Yeah.
that healing journey.
My recovery was physical first because I mean, it was like I needed everything to relax.
Mhm.
My neck was super I mean, I could not make my neck go in a circle. Like, it had gotten that bad, which was then affecting everything else, right? It was like my sleep was anyway. So it started physical first. I then and I've been an athlete my entire life, so also, like, not being able to really, like, use my body in the way that it's meant to was
Mhm.
unbelievably frustrating. Um, I then got into therapy, which was also very helpful, but I am very grateful because the job that I was at allowed me the space and the resources to be able to do those things, right?
Mm,
To actually, like, invest in the stuff that I needed to
right.
do. Um, as much as everybody says, like, you need to get mindful and you need to like, I am a terrible meditator. I will talk about this all the time. I cannot just sit
Right.
down and like, it's not I'm not good at it. And I know a lot of people struggle with that of just having a very active brain. Um, I think that meditation needs a rebrand. I think we need to think about meditative practices versus meditation itself. So for me, walking was has always been a very meditative practice. Working out has always been meditative. Washing dishes, like things that just feel very like repetitive.
Mhm.
I love doing laundry for
I
some
do
reason.
too. Isn't that
There's
wild? Yeah.
I I hate doing dishes. I love doing laundry.
Same.
There's sometimes that you're just like, yeah, I don't know. It's everyone has their thing that you're like, this is a very boring thing that I actually love to do and
Right.
calms me down. Um, but I also have to say, like, my recovery has never stopped.
Mm.
Like ever. I still get migraines. I don't get them as bad, but it has never, ever stopped, and I don't think it's ever going to because when you're always at different cycles in your life where you're like, "Okay, well" I mean, like, when I launched my company, I was like, "This is great." Well, launching a company and being an I mean, as you know, and as many women who are listening to this know, being an entrepreneur is very hard. There's
Right.
always gonna be a, "What is my next offering? What does my next pivot look like? How am I supposed to be doing my content?" Like, I have to talk to my bookkeeper. "Oh my god, my accountant's gonna kill me." There's something that's going on that you're always just like, "There's something new." And that causes a lot of stress. And then just on top of, again, like the world that we're in. Like there's
Mhm.
just, or, health things that you have to deal with that are just completely out of the blue. So the thing that I always have to remind myself is everybody who's coming to a Zoom, everybody who's coming to a meeting, everybody who's meeting me where I'm at has something going on that I have no idea what's happening in their life,
Yeah.
that they're
Yeah.
not wanting to tell me. I'm an open book with pretty much everything, which is a blessing and a curse. But I think if we could have a little more grace for the people who are showing up at all and just knowing that, like, we don't have to know everything that's going on in their lives, but there's probably something going on that we don't know about
Right.
is just let's take inventory of that and think about what that looks like.
I just had that conversation with somebody recently. I have a mantra that's always been assume positive intent. That was if anybody that's ever worked in a department that I led knows, assume positive intent.
Yeah.
Because so often, not only do we misinterpret things, right? The tone of the email or the text or whatnot, but we don't know what somebody's going through. And maybe they
Never.
were a little snarky that day because, they were going through something um, really difficult or really traumatic. And even if they were just being snarky that day, it's better energy for you to
Yeah.
some positive intent. You mentioned your company. We talked about the fact that you left your big job and you started your own company, the Good Advice Company.
Yeah.
Okay, I love the name, first of all, the Good Advice Company. It's like, who doesn't wanna
I
go
do too, but I didn't name it. I
I know, that's what I understand. Somebody else named it and it sort of
Yes.
stuck, so say more about that. How'd that happen?
It was during the pandemic, and it is so hard to name a company for
Oh
anybody
gosh,
who's ever tried to name a company.
right.
There are trademark things, there are websites not available, there is social not av it is very hard to name a company, even as somebody who's in branding. Um, I was talking to my mentor over Zoom, he was a CEO strategist, and I was like, my lawyer's gonna kill me. I gotta come up. I like have to come up with a name. Like help me." And he's like, "All right," approached it like every other strategic mission in the past. And he's like, "I don't know. You give really good advice." And he was like, "What about the Good Advice Company?" And I'm like, "There's no way that's available." And I went I went online and I was like, "Oh my god, like, all of it's available." And he's like, "Get it, and if you decide sleep on it, and if you decide you
Right.
don't like it, maybe I'll use it for something, but, like, let's see what happens." And then I really, like, thought about, I mean, I am the queen of, like, unsolicited advice, which I really am trying hard to, like, tamper and only give people advice when they ask for it. I'm also a Virgo, and Virgos just naturally wanna give advice to everyone all the time and fix everything. And it really embodies, I think, who I am fully in both my PR and my marketing, my personal branding, but also in kind of the spiritual side of me and the intuitive medium part. So, yeah, I mean, it was like lightning struck. And I'm
It's
so grateful because this mentor and I are still work together, and he's the most amazing human. So,
Oh, I
what a
love
gift.
that.
Yeah.
I love that. So, opportunistic plug, but as you know, both working with a coach and being a coach, I work with coaches and coach. It floors me how often people don't work with a coach, and yet you would not be in any of the arts, sports, anything. You mentioned that you grew up with sports, so it's natural that of course you have a coach, right?
Yeah.
That helps you unleash your potential to exponential performance. Um big fan of having that person in your life.
Yeah.
Before we move over to and you've alluded to it a couple times, before we move over to some of the intuitive side, which I'm excited to get into as well. You mentioned earlier about, you're a storyteller, PR's, very much part of who you are, and personal branding, and you talked
Mhm.
about when people introduce you, it's all the credentials, the resume, very, very, American way that we do things. What advice as it relates to that when people are doing personal branding?
Yeah.
What are they leaving out? And I think this is so important right now because I really feel like the resume is so has such a great opportunity and so undersells so many people because it's so tactical. What advice do you give around that personal branding?
Start talking about all the stuff that's at the bottom of your bio first,
Mm,
because that's the stuff that's interesting. W We've gotten to this point where we're no longer generationally at just one job forever. We're at a lot of
right.
jobs. So, a lot of people are starting to look alike because 'cause we're all at kind of the same jobs. It's very important that we learn who you are as a human. So, what makes you you? So you were like,
Mhm.
"Oh, I didn't know you were a twin." Like, let's talk about
Right.
that. Like, there's interest I always think about, like, the 5 fun facts that, like, you wanna talk about yourself that are
Yeah.
interesting. Like, what is your own elevator pitch when you walk into a room? Um, so yeah, I always think about there's things that people naturally wanna connect on. I
Mhm.
do think zodiac signs tend to be like, "Oh my god, I'm a Virgo, you're a Virgo, let's talk about," like,
Right.
that's brings up conversation. I rescued a dog, you rescued a dog, like, let's talk about our dogs. I don't know why it is that well, I do know. It's a human relatability factor,
Sure.
right? It's like when you find a common ground, it's something that you can talk about.
Mhm.
So, I always recommend, like, start talking about those things so much earlier on. The things
Mhm.
that, like, light you up, the things that are interesting, the things that, like, make you you, because y your jobs are just credentials.
Right.
That's what you do, it's not who you are.
It's not who you are.
Yeah.
So, so important. And, I think too, in this age of AI and machine learning and automation, what I continue to talk to people about is what makes you uniquely human,
Mhm.
right? What is your unique human capital that isn't gonna be automated. In addition, right, so those are the things to bring forward is your perspective, the things that how you show up in
Yeah.
addition to some of those really personal items, because those are the things that I think people see as, first of all, they're also, transferable, right? It's not like,
Yes.
"Oh, well, I did these tasks or have these skills and knowledge." You're talking about leadership, you're talking about how you show up in the world, you're talking about where you volunteer, other parts that make you a human
Mhm.
being. Yeah, I love
100%,
that.
yeah.
So I know that you're a medium and that
Yeah.
you have the gift of being an intuitive. We've spent some time together for my own reading, which was fascinating and so incredible. Um, how how have you managed? It sounds like in doing my research that for a while you had to separate that part of your life, right? You were the communication strategist, and or how
Yeah,
does
I
that
mean,
live together?
I've always been a very intuitive person. So even as like a
Right.
child, that was like on my report cards, like, oh, she's got great intuition. And as I moved more into my career, that was always something kind of on my reviews as well. Is like, her intuition's great when it comes to like business decisions or,
Mm,
whatever media we want to go with, strategy. Um, and then as I got older and I was, really focusing on my like I think that personal development, I started thinking about and exploring different modalities. I've always been really interested in this. My dad is a sci-fi writer and showrunner. I saw my first medium when I was 10 years old. I did a book report on it.
oh, how
So like a
interesting.
research project. Um, so I've always been like very interested in this kind of this this world, I guess you could say. And I live in Los Angeles, so it's also very
Right.
like easily accepted here.
That's right.
Um, I used to watch John Edwards as a child, like on
Yes.
TV, and I was like, "Oh my god, he's talking to dead people. This is so interesting." Anyway, um, and then when I started looking at different modalities, that was when I started to figure out what was working for me and what wasn't. And when it came to work, it was something that like I I I knew how to do, and I was kind of I was actually learning and really figuring out like how to hone that skill.
Mhm.
I really don't believe it's like a gift. I don't believe that like only special people get this. I actually think everyone has access to this should they choose to or not. And I understand why some people choose not to and why some people choose to. I
Right.
totally get it. But then in 2020, I was very open about this. I really wanted to start practicing it. Everyone was at home. So I was like, I wonder if I can do this via Zoom. And I figured out how to do it via Zoom pretty quickly.
Right.
And then I started offering readings, in trade for such silly things. During the pandemic, it was actually lovely. I was like, "Don't pay me, but we'll do kind of some kind of exchange." And I would get, like, books sent to my house or, like, plants or, it was oh god, honestly, it was phenomenal. And then in 2022, 2023, I started talking about it out loud, and I actually posted about it on LinkedIn, and it was a very scary moment. I thought everybody was gonna be like, "Oh,"
Right.
and no, no, everybody was like, "Oh, that makes sense." Like, no one was shocked. I think it was about yeah, it was
Interesting.
2022. No one was surprised, which was wild to me, and my business, like, tripled. It's a very unique offering, right? Like,
Mhm.
I come to things with a intuitive lens. So, like, when I'm working with clients for personal branding, I do an Akashic reading for them. I can explain what that is in a second. Then I do behavioral analytics, so I really get
Mhm.
into, like, who you are, and the test that I use is phenomenal. It's very quick. It's so I have intuitive data, behavioral data, then I do story mining. So,
Mhm.
I'm gonna figure out who you are very quickly and where your blocks are, and that's only 3 sessions.
Wow.
I mean, it superpowers everything and makes everything go much faster. So, yeah,
Mhm.
it's great.
Talk more about the reading. I think it's fascinating,
Yeah.
and it was the first time I had been introduced to it is through you.
Yeah. So the Akashic records are what people say is really a library of your soul's journey, past, present, future. I was taught through the Akashic records, or that's kind of how I connected in the best way. I connect with your guides, or, whatever. It's wild. I mean, you've experienced this. We just kind of
Mhm.
do a really grounding meditation, get in, and then I see, I hear, I taste, I smell, and I just share with you what that looks like. And then we have kind of a dialogue of what that potentially could mean. So
Mm.
it's it's interesting because I think a lot of uh, people who are very devout in their religion and or have a lot of fear around this, I'm
Mhm.
like the best person to work with because it's very not scary and not
Right.
and I think maybe not offensive. I tend to be that person that people who've never had a reading do their first reading with. And I
Interesting,
love to
yeah.
just be able to get that information. I do connect with people who've passed. So, the ability to be able to help people heal, um, their grief, I think is also, like,
Mhm.
something that brings me a lot of, um, purpose in the
Right.
best way possible, right? Um, but the fact that I can kind of tie together that world and my corporate world is awesome. I mean, like, I kinda
Yeah.
can't believe I get to do that. I did a workshop with one of my colleagues who is in brand partnerships and, in sports, and she also is an amazing tarot reader. And we actually did a workshop at Fast Company's Innovation Festival last year, um, about intuition and intuitive intelligence, and how, like, these are the superpowers that you're actually going to need in the age of AI, when we're all starting
Agree.
to kind of sound the same and act the same. We're going to need that emotional intelligence. We're going to need that intuitive intelligence and that critical thinking to know, am I getting something back right? And am I using my institutional knowledge and the wisdom that I've had through my years to pivot in a way that artificial intelligence can't? So,
Could not agree
yeah.
more. And I find that human beings in general, um, start to mute that inner voice.
Oh,
When we're
yeah.
little kids, we're so open to the possibilities, so open, our minds are so much more open, but we're so conditioned over time to sort of mute that intuitive voice. And I would even go further to say my experience was working in a very high powered corporate
Hmm.
job is right or wrong, the way I showed up and felt that I needed to show up to serve me at that moment was very much through my head, right? Very
Yeah.
much through data, evidence, ego, healthy ego.
Yeah.
And then moving into entrepreneurship, coaching, specifically focusing on a lot of women, I had somebody say to me who is an intuitive, unsolicited, uh, she reached out for advice from me. And by the end of the conversation, I hadn't talked to her in 20 years. By the end of the conversation, she was saying, "Here's what I'm feeling, seeing. Here's something you should know."
Wild. Yeah.
Was bizarre, but her it was so bizarre, but her core message was, "Cynthia, you have led from your healthy ego for so long, and this space is gonna call you to be authentic and vulnerable and tap into your heart center," and all these things, and I was like, "Huh." I mean, it really was a bit of a mind-blowing
Yeah.
blowing experience, but it did open me to the notion of how often I've muted my own intuition
Oh,
because it
yeah.
didn't line up with the masculine. And I don't mean men, but the masculine side of decision making, facts, data, et cetera, in business.
Yes. I think that it's you've said everything that I actually truly believe as well. So I do believe as children we are so open. And then there is society's like, no, no, no. This
Mhm.
is the way that we're actually supposed to do things. Like, psh. And then there is something big that reopen that cracks us back open as an adult, whether it's a pandemic, it is an illness, it is a death, it is, it's something, a love, it's something big that kind of like, for me, it was obviously my burnout situation that kind
Right.
of like, turned things back on. And then we have to figure out how to really hone in on that skill and how what that skill looks like for us. So it's hard right now because I think that we live in a world where if you go onto social media, there's so many people telling us how to do things. Like, here's my class
Mm,
on how to do this. Or like, no, 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 you need to cut cords or you need to, put a bubble around you or you need to do all these things. And I'm like, what? Like, what is happening? like, like no one is going to know who's right or wrong
right.
when it comes to this stuff until we die, or even maybe then we won't know who. But my advice when it comes to what your own spiritual health looks like is to do whatever feels best for you.
Mm,
There's a lot of tips and tricks that you can get from people. I talk a lot about how to return energy or different journaling mechanisms that I have known that have worked for me. Guided meditation was kind of my I'd say like my gateway drug into like really being able to like journey in a way that was interesting. But that's not going to work for everybody.
mm-hmm,
And I'm really cognizant of that. And I want to be
mm-hmm.
able to help people hone in on their intuition and their intuitive skills in whatever way that feels best for them. But anybody who's listening, just know that like you're not doing it wrong. You're just doing it your
Yeah.
way, you know?
That's important. I think it's important for because I imagine there's a spectrum of people listening right now, right?
Hmm.
There's a person that's going, "What did I just walk into?
Yeah, I know,
This is
right?
not what I was expecting," right? To the person that's saying, "Oh my heavens, this is exactly what I need at this moment. I've been in this
Yeah.
awakening, so on." Or the person that says, "Yeah, I've known this. This is wherever you are in that on that spectrum of things." What I appreciate so much about your approach is around your approach around everything is find the path that works best for you
Yeah.
and,
For
help
literally for everything.
for
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I want to take a moment and speak directly to the listener as it relates to this kind of pulling this whole thing together when we think about purpose and we've been talking a lot about purpose. The question the question that the 7-minute pivot asks, and many of you, if you've been following along, have heard of the 7-minute pivot. It's really Elizabeth's what her whole pivot answers. If your job title disappeared tomorrow, not your income, just the title, the role, the identity that comes with it, who would you still be? What would still matter? That gap between what you do and who you are, that's exactly where purpose drift lives. And the good news is you don't have to go to the ER with a migraine to fix that or to identify it. 7 minutes will do. The 7-minute pivot, as you all know, is a daily practice to isolate the signals. What is your body telling you before you're in the ER? Recognize the patterns. Has this been happening for a while? Is this new feeling? And then choose the direction. One tiny small thing you can do today to move slightly in a more healthy direction and do what works best for you, as Elizabeth's been saying. The free guide is available, as you know, on my website, dr-cynthia.com/resources. Elizabeth, talk about where folks can get a hold of you. By the way, I'm fascinated by the three parts of your approach. I love the behavioral, the reading, and then the
Story mining.
story mapping, right? To
Yeah.
really understand the person's whole being. One is, I think that would be so validating and clarity giving around what is my purpose, right? For
Yeah.
the person that's saying, I'm not sure I know that. Going through that discovery process, I would think would create so much clarity. And if you believe that you know, but you're trying to figure out how do you package it? How do you put it all
Exactly.
together? Again,
And
yeah.
the
How do
reality
they
is
get a
too
hold?
is that well your purpose can change. Do you
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean? Like I think like I want to help people. That purpose is not necessarily going to change, but how it manifests in your life is going to change and that's okay. Like
That's right.
it all just doesn't have to be so linear. You can get a hold of me on LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn. I am a unhinged poster on there saying all the things that you're thinking and somebody finally is saying. Um, and then at thegoodadvicecompany.com and then also at chiefspiritualofficer.com.
It's
Yeah.
so great. You guys, I want to encourage you to reach out to Elizabeth. We'll have everything, of course, in the show notes for the person that's driving or walking or on a run. Before we completely wrap up, one of the questions I ask every guest is one small thing you would invite the woman listening to do today to move forward in a healthy direction.
Put your phone down.
Mm,
I mean, truly, I don't sleep with my phone in my room, and that was like that was the first big thing that I did after my burnout was stop having my phone in my room. And also just pick up a good book, whether you're listening to it or reading it. Um, I joined a book club a couple years ago, and honestly, those women have become like sisters of mine. So I think that connection and disconnection when you can do them like
Mhm.
together is really, really important.
Yeah. It's all
Yeah.
about intentionality, right? Just
Yes.
invest in the thing that you have been putting on drift. Invest in the thing that you've just been that's on autopilot.
Yeah.
What's that part of your life that you're just sort of phoning in? And I love put the phone down.
Yeah.
Guilty. I could take some of that advice myself. Well, Elizabeth,
Mhm.
I am so grateful for you and so grateful for what you bring to the world, all of the gifts and talents that you share with those who are so
See?
privileged to interact with you. I've learned so much from you. So I
Thank
personally am
you.
grateful. Absolutely. One of the things Elizabeth said, I will disclose this on my reading, which I thought was so fascinating. She said, "There's something about you. You are so obsessed with the numbers. Your numbers aren't right. You're worried about the numbers. Somebody has you worried about the numbers, and the numbers are flawed. They aren't representative of your reach. That it's ripple by ripple." And what you didn't know and wouldn't have known is I have been watching my LinkedIn followers like a hawk, my Instagram followers like a hawk. I'm this close to 1,000 on Instagram and this close to 10,000 on LinkedIn. And it's been this obsession. And ever since the reading, I'm like, you know what? It's not representative of the
No.
bigger purpose. So let it ride and just have faith and continue to do what you're doing. So that gave me a
Good.
lot of peace. Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you guys for tuning in and spending your time with us. It's such a privilege. And until next time, I've got you and you've got this. Congratulations on choosing to invest in yourself. I know your time is precious. Thank you for spending it here with me. I believe in helping you look up, step forward, and fully realizing your potential. If today's conversation resonated, I'd be so grateful if you'd rate and comment on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen. And if you know someone who would benefit, please share this episode with them. Let's stay connected. Visit me at dr-cynthia.com, and you can find me on all the socials at Dr. Cynthia Bentzen-Mercer. Until next time, remember, boldly start working on your future today.